Hi, this is Kirk Davis, Executive Director of CAS. I'm here today with Nancy White, the CEO and founder of Custom Interface. Nancy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Nice to
Uh,
see you today.
it's good to see you. And I just have to tell you that, first of all, I've enjoyed getting to know you. And I think we've had some marvelous conversations. But I really like your background picture because that is your factory in the background.
Yes, yes.
And
We've
so,
got a gorgeous facility that we moved into about 5 years ago. It was built for us.
oh, nice.
And we built a little large because we're in the scenic area and so a bit landlocked. So I wanted some protection for the future.
Well,
But it's been wonderful with the pandemic. We were able to spread people far enough
oh, yeah.
apart to keep them safe. So we've been able to keep our doors open through this whole craziness.
Well, as we
And
talk, I wanted people to know that for sure that's your factory behind you, and it's
okay.
gorgeous. Yeah, you've got a gorgeous factory and setup, and I think sometime we're going to be doing a factory tour at some point. So,
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get that together in the next few weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, our purpose today is to really help companies to understand you and what you offer, which I think is a remarkable story. And just a few minutes ago, I called you a real made in America success story. And so I think your story started off in over 24 years ago in 1997. And so
Okay.
how did you get into this?
Well, I got a degree in electronics in my mid 30s because I'd always been kind of in male dominated but fairly physical careers, and I knew I couldn't do that as I aged. I've always had a real aptitude for math and the sciences, so I thought I would be able to be successful. I also had a background in sales, and I spent about a year in a cubicle and realized I really missed the interaction of sales. So I started looking for an opportunity where I could marry those both up. Sometimes I feel like the Jerry Garcia story, what a long, strange trip it's been, right?
Yeah.
Because, this current 24-year run was a result of combining things that really weren't associated in any way, but now have turned out into to be able to live where I live and have a business and create the kind of culture for my employees and my clients has been kind of a dream come true for me. So it
Well,
turned out pretty well.
yeah, I love the story. And you're not like right in downtown Seattle or something. You're in a very scenic area of Washington State. What is it
Right.
of your town again?
The name is Bingen. We're about 60 miles east of Vancouver, Washington. This area is so beautiful. It was designated as a scenic area, and tremendous amounts of recreational opportunities. A lot of people came here to we call ourselves lifestyle entrepreneurs. We
Oh yeah.
play as hard as we work. And so to be able to have all of those pluses right outside my door is pretty amazing. Yeah.
One of the things for people to know about you is that you've been primarily in the aerospace
Mm-hmm.
sector, but that means that you've met many of the rigorous aerospace certifications. I mean, you're a certified small business, you're a hub zone certified business, UL listed, SAM, ITAR. Um, I mean, and then the aerospace designations of ISO, AS. You know, um, you go through those ISO and AS audits every year.
Yes.
Those are very rigorous. Those are
Yes.
rigorous. And
Yeah.
you kind of have a claim to fame here in terms of your last audit. Of course, I think on all of your audits, they might find something nitpicky, not very much, but I think you actually you had no nonconformance issues.
I haven't run into another company that passed an audit with no non-conformances. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't run into anybody. So yeah, we're pretty proud of
It's a
that.
big deal.
But we always had a culture of continuous improvement because I wanted the best experience for myself and my employees as well as our clients. When you take out waste and reduce frustration, everybody goes home smiling, right?
Yeah.
And so that, you know, that continuous, let's leave it better than we found it attitude, sometimes it's a little hard for new folks coming on to get used to. They're not comfortable saying, I messed up, or I've got an idea. And so typically it takes about 6 months for people to gain the confidence that they really are going to contribute to making the day go well. And we acknowledge that anyone in our company could make the kind of mistake that could cost us a client. So we are all pitching in together. When we started the AS9100, it was kind of funny, the thing that was most challenging, because we've been doing it kind of naturally all this time, all of a sudden we have to start documenting this to be able to satisfy the audits. And so that was, it took us a little while to get used to doing that.
Yeah.
But our auditor comes in every year and he'll make a suggestion about some area that he'd like to see us improve the next year. And we try and keep that guy smiling. So we always, you know, we'll work on those issues. And so he's become as much of a mentor and a resource to our company as he is that guy who could make things really challenging for us if we, you know, don't follow our process.
I think that's a great point of view to treat an auditor, because I've been in fields where there's auditing all the time. And that's a great way to treat an auditor, like a mentor. Yeah, it's a great way.
Yeah.
So, you know, we haven't even talked about your product yet. We just talked about you and your quality and your culture already, but you are in the business of custom electrical wire, cable harnesses, electromechanical assembly integrations, and system integrations. So break that down for us.
We don't manufacture multi-conductor cables. We buy a customer specified component and we build them into wiring harnesses that are very customized to our clients' specifications. So when we do that, we have a process where we'll look at the drawing, we provide an estimate, we have the components or we have to procure them, and then we'll build a first piece to make sure that we've correctly interpreted the drawings. A lot of engineers don't get any training in wire harness drawings, and so there's a little bit of finesse of sometimes of making sure that we've interpreted correctly what they want. We'll send that off to them, and if they're happy with it, then we go into production with it. While we're doing that, we build these assembly instructions that are detailed enough that someone could replicate what we build that first time without ever looking at the drawing.
Wow.
And that way we make sure that kind of translates into a common language for our floor. People are always going to know where to find the information because we have created these templates that drives all of that information being loaded in the same way each time. And I think it's a contributor to our efficiency, but also the fact that we're going to build the same product the same way every time.
I know these things are so important, and we've talked about this, but you work in some very interesting industries. So aerospace, military and defense, unmanned systems, which I think is very interesting, your unmanned systems. Industrial sensing, audio and video, renewable energy, transportation. I mean, that's a very wide range of industries, but I'm very impressed that you can take on, I don't know if it's for you, it's like the same process regardless of who the customer is, or if you've learned things from every different industry.
Well, both are true, but I think we decided to go with the class 3. IPC is a standard for workmanship that was developed between the Wire Harness Manufacturing Association and industries all over the world. And they came together and created these workbooks that are pictorial guides about what's okay and what isn't okay as far as workmanship. So in that guide, they identify 3 different classes. And class 3 is the most stringent. It's appropriate to aerospace. Anytime you have lives on the line, that's what you're going to default to. So we thought it would be really confusing to people if we were building different levels of quality for different clients. We're finding that we can be competitive because our quality program is so stringent, and the controls keep people from building things that we'd have to throw away, that we can, you know, we can build at that top quality.
Wow.
And that usually is a delight for somebody who's used to throwing away 3 to 5% of the products that they get. Well, now the 100% of them are going to pass. So guess what? We get to keep a customer for a long time.
Well, you know, you said something about the drawings that I thought was so interesting, that, you know, because like I say, most engineers might not have the exact background in what you do, but you're able to look at those drawings and actually possibly cut some costs or lead time, which I think is very valuable as well.
I think where custom interface really shines is if we can align with a client who hasn't got a cast-in concrete bill of material. We have got so much experience in connectors and cable that we can typically take 20 to 30% of the cost or the lead time out of a particular assembly, just because we can, you know, we can recommend some better ways of building the product to make it more durable, or we can, you know, suggest alternatives that are maybe a little less expensive or have a shorter lead time. And so we think that those things, which we don't charge for, those are just value adds as the relationship, helps our customer become more competitive, which means
that's right,
hopefully that we have a long-term relationship with a really successful customer.
I think that is so fabulous. You know, the pandemic wasn't easy for a lot of people, but you have another claim to fame was a 40% efficiency gain during the pandemic. So what happened during the pandemic there?
Well, I can't blame it on the pandemic. I have to blame it on our president. He was looking on a weekly basis at the data that we were gathering about how long it took various people to build the assemblies that were going through the factory. And what he noticed was that whenever somebody was over the estimated time, it was usually because it was the first time they'd built it. You want to cross-train, you want to give people new opportunities, but that has to be balanced with efficiency. So he developed a software program that assigned the work to the most efficient people, and then we very thoughtfully chose when and who and how we would do the cross-training, and the net effect of that was, like you said, this 40% efficiency gain, which was awesome.
How has that affected your lead times and your pricing?
Well, before the pandemic, we were at 12 to 14 weeks, and that's really kind of saying no to business opportunities. Most clients can't wait that long to get something. So it was turning away opportunities, and it was really painful for us to have that happen. So our lead time, as a result of the efficiency gain and the better scheduling, came down to 3 or 4 weeks. That's inside of what is typical for our industry, so that was a real win. And the other thing that we did is we were able to keep our costs down. Every year, labor and benefits go up, right? Materials go up, but because of the efficiency gain, was able to offset. For this year, we weren't forced to pass on any of those increases to our clients.
This is all part of that, you know, very successful American entrepreneur manufacturing experience. So I think that is such good news. And I think that's really good for people to hear this. You know, another claim to fame you have is the rapid prototyping. I would imagine that's of high interest to many different industries.
You know, one of the things that we know is that there really isn't a good software program that's going to predict if you have to route a wire through a piece of equipment, how long that wire really needs to be. So being able to take and build something quickly for an engineer so he can plug it in and make sure that his lengths are correct, that's huge. So we have about, I think, 5,000 connectors and wires and different components that are utilized in building wiring harnesses in-house already. So there's a pretty good chance that we're already going to have what someone would need. And in a case like that, we can turn it in less than a week.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So that really helps. The other place that we use this service is for somebody who's trying to proof a design. So sometimes we get a napkin with a drawing on it, you know, and we'll turn that into a product. We can also document what we did and produce a drawing that the customer can then put their, you know, logo on and own if they're happy with it. But we've been able to we took a whole airplane worth of harnesses and prototyped them and completely revamped this in 6 months for a client.
Oh.
They estimated going into that was going to be a 2-year project.
Wow.
And they were delighted. They actually put an engineer on site because it was moving so quickly, you know, and that being able to have that quick give and take, it was an amazing thing to get to play and do.
Well, and so, you know, part of the story is they don't have to come to you with a completed design necessarily. That's kind of cool that you can walk them through that process and help them.
I think between all of the folks that are working on quoting and our technical salespeople, we've got probably 200 or 300 years of experience, you know, put all together. So we're happy to share that to build a long-term relationship with somebody.
You know, your business is located in a very beautiful rural location. I think people should want to come and just visit you for that reason, right? But you really do some business with some world-class customers. Can you just name some of your customer list?
We are currently working for FLIR, several divisions of their company all over the United States. Our very first drone customer got purchased by Boeing. Their name is In Situ. And we've been with them for, I think, since 2001.
Oh, wow.
So as they grew and they talked about, you know, who their supplier, we were a tier 1 supplier for them. And so our name kind of got branded across the United States. There's another little cluster of drone manufacturers on the East Coast. And so we were doing some business with PAE ISR for a while. We're building product for CHI. They have a fleet of helicopters involved in firefighting.
Oh, wow.
And they also have a drone that they're using for surveillance and delivering. We have Valanci is just now testing their ability, for example, to deliver a vaccine to rural and remote areas. We've got drones that are dropping medicines off in South Africa for the UN. So that it's kind of a, you know, something that is exploding all over the world. And the engineers that work in these projects tend to get really excited when they see a new platform, so they'll migrate. In a lot of cases, they take us with them. So A lot of our business comes from referrals from engineers that have
Years. Oh, my
worked
goodness.
with us.
Well,
Yeah.
you mentioned that I know that drones aren't necessarily manned, but you do work with helicopters and planes and maritime. You do some um, work that on machinery that is important to preserve human life. And so one of the things that we've talked about is that you have I think you've logged over 1 million unmanned aerial flight hours with with no reported failures.
Right. You know, and it's what's true for a drone in the air. We felt when we got that kind of a longevity test that it gave us the confidence to say yes to an opportunity to start building wiring harnesses for private and commercial aircraft. Because we knew that, you know, the way we approach our builds was going to deliver something that, you know, I'll put my life in the air on my wiring harness any day, right?
Wow.
But it's also true. I mean, if we've got a drone in the air, we had one a couple of years ago. We had a horrible fire in the gorge, and in situ's drone was flying over those fires and directly feeding video to the firefighters on the ground, and they were in some incredibly dangerous terrain. And so for that video to fail, you know, lives would have been at risk, even though there wasn't somebody in that aircraft.
Still preserved life. Yeah.
Right, we do. And then, you know, we started out years ago, we were building harnesses for a company that made digital broadcasting equipment. So these guys had a big van with a, you know, transmitting equipment. They would drag the cables through the snow and be, you know, filming an event at the Olympics, and then they'd throw it in the back of the truck. So we learned some tricks on how to build in some durabilities with connectors that maybe would have not had that kind of performance if we hadn't added a little bit of the secret sauce to it.
Wow.
So what we've learned, we apply every opportunity that we can, because most of the time, folks that are buying stuff from us don't have a box of extra cables in the back that they can pull out and use if something fails, right?
Gosh,
So.
my goodness. Well, I hope people are really getting a feeling for what you do and the quality you do it at, and how you bring, you know, things you've learned. I don't know, always growing, always improving. But you've said something like this to me, that if it has a knob, an indicator light, a switch, or there's two components that need to communicate or connect, your company can provide the wiring behind it. Where are you seeing opportunities for growth for your business?
Well, I know because of the area that you come from that you're aware of this emerging market with electric airplanes.
Oh, yes.
They're going to serve all these small airports that have been underserved for years and really be, you know, bringing the carbon load down. I'm really excited about that. And I know that what we do will cross-drain into that industry. We've done some products for outer space, but we'd like to do more. We also have done a lot of the drones have been built with components that have to take salt spray.
Oh,
so, you know, those same components get used in deep sea exploration, for example.
Yes.
Something in a solar panel array's got to be able, right, to keep on working, keep on ticking. So there's a lot of areas that are beginning to traction some growth that I think we're definitely developing strategies for approaching those markets.
You know, it's so interesting to hear these areas that you're talking about and how relatively new they are. You know, I think there's new and emerging fields all the time that you will be part of that story. I think that's very fascinating. You know, you've really, I'm going to say lived your life, but you've lived your professional life by some qualities and standards and values that have really kept your customers coming back. I think your first customer that was with you 23 years ago is still with you today.
Right. I use the word integrity a lot. You know, I mentioned earlier that any employee in customer interface could cause us to lose a contract. And we're all aware of that. We talk that talk on a daily basis. If we treat our clients and our employees respectfully, that old golden rule, if we keep our commitments, that's, we got to celebrate our 20th year ago, and we had some of our clients show up, and I gave the spiel about that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a professional environment where I could count on everybody that I talked to, and that they could count on me keeping our agreements. And I think that's why people continue. It develops a loyalty and a trust. You can't let it, I don't know the right word. You can't, in a contract, really address what makes things work and not work. It's the human care,
Yeah.
and that keeping commitments that, okay, I'll follow it up later, but everybody's off and running to get things, what needs to get done, because you trust that word. And so it's been really fun to be able to create an environment where I could relax into, that's the way I'm going to do business, and it's going to attract the kinds of customers that want that kind of relationship, and we end up staying together for a long time as a result of it.
Well, that's an incredible level of integrity, you know, all the way through. And this has turned into an interview, you know, letting people know about your company. This has turned into a master class on how to do business right. And I think you continue to express those values of caring and integrity and quality from the top to the bottom, and willingness, you know, to be transparent and helpful all the way through. Anyway, I hope everybody's hearing the good business lessons in here too.
Well, and it pays off to the bottom line too.
Yeah.
It isn't, I mean, there are different approaches that are maybe a little more cutthroat than I call it cutthroat than that. But my bottom line doesn't suffer as a result of those kinds of values, and I get the joy of living a dream. So
yeah,
it's a win.
Well, you know, and it's true that we live in a competitive environment, especially manufacturing, globally competitive environment. So I know that you have some competition overseas, and I was wondering if you could explain the difference between what you manufacture and what can be bought from overseas manufacturers.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of, I would call consumer electronic cables are manufactured offshore. Mexico took on a big chunk of the automotive market. China has taken on a big chunk of everything else electronic, from, you know, I think the Apple phone to the Xboxes to the cables that you plug into your computers. So, you know, originally we were building those kinds of things, and China would take an order for 10,000 pieces of something. But as they've tooled up, they don't need that large an order anymore. So we've continued to have to identify value adds for US manufacturers to be able to retain our business. And it's kept us nimble. I do not want to be a dinosaur, right?
Right.
But I think America, as a result of the pandemic, kind of woke up to some of the vulnerabilities. We still bought a tremendous amount of product from China. But with the current political, you know, tensions, if I were an OEM, I'd want to have a US made onshore facility that could help me out if, you know, the worst thing happens and we end up in war with them. So who knows how it's going to all play out, but definitely the dividers, our clients primarily build fairly expensive equipment, equipment that they have no tolerance for failure. And we have actually bought stuff from overseas and then rescreened it for clients. It's real typical to throw 30 or 40, not 30 or 40, 3 or 4% of that away. It just fails right out of the box.
Wow.
So you know,
Yeah.
that's the distinguishing difference, right?
My goodness. That's huge. And I hope everybody kind of heard there that there are some really good reasons to work with you, rather than trying to go offshore. And I know that you help manage relationships and product quality and everything that takes the worry out of it for the customer. Now, you've been working with unmanned vehicles for 2 decades. That,
Right.
that's a long time. Um, so there's kind of, you mentioned, you've worked in all different parts of that, but what kind of manufacturing techniques have you learned to apply in these kind of projects with OEMs and in these type of unmanned markets?
Okay. So the only portion of a drone that we haven't built, tested, calibrated, and controlled the supply chain on is the engine.
Yeah.
Everything else, from the exterior, typically carbon, we'll take that raw carbon, we do cosmetic and structural inspections, we get it painted. Some of our clients want a Ferrari showroom type finish. Others are less concerned about that because they're going to go off and fly in Afghanistan or whatever, and
Yeah.
and the product's going to get beat up. We've done fuel tanks. We've done what are called servos, which are the little motors that raise the ailerons and open and up in different bays inside of the drone. We have helped with a lot of the cabling for the ground stations that control the communication cables. So pretty much every aspect, with the exception of that engine. And initially doing primarily cable assemblies, we hadn't developed the eye or the techniques to work with carbon fiber. But as a result of taking that on now, I've got some, I would call world-class finishers for that level of, cosmetic finish on carbon fiber.
Wow.
We can mill it, drill it, shield it, everything that's needed to keep that product. We try to protect the intellectual property. So if we do a project, I mentioned the plane and all the cables that we helped, we're not going to take that information and share it in any way with anybody else. But we develop the assembly processes and the installation techniques, and we consider that our IP.
Yeah.
So that we feel, if I learn a trick over here, that might be okay to, to utilize that same assembly technique for another client. So that's how we gain expertise and leverage that learning experience.
Boy, the icing on the cake here, I think, really is that you have developed a real turnkey solution for your customers. You're managing the vendors, the materials, the entire process. Essentially, I mean, your customers are so well taken care of by you. It's just a ready to plug and play solution for them. Right.
Sometimes I wonder if we don't get their problem child because it takes a while working with a vendor who's maybe a sole source to get them to understand that it's in their best interest to deliver the quality based on the specification. And so we work really hard with our vendors to develop an understanding of how they're going to measured and the frequency and what they can expect if they drop the ball. I would much rather be on the controlling end of that than finding out that I just scheduled 5 people to work on something and it's not going to be here today, and that's out of my control. So we really prefer to control the supply chain when we can. And like I said, we've got experience with everything from printed circuit board manufacturers to cable. Some of our clients will have us have specialized raw cable built for them, and so we're inspecting all that to the carbon fiber and even connectors. We have in our MRP system, we have a way to identify if we ever have a quality defect for a component, we have a way to identify that. So it's going to go through a heightened inspection. And that way it doesn't get out to the floor and oops, we got a problem again. We tend to catch it while there's still some recovery time. So I learned a lot based on the scar tissue on my back, so to speak.
You talked about leaving, kind of each day, leaving things better off than when you found them. I think it's a beautiful philosophy. And I want to thank you for not just, who you are and how you do things, but the lessons you've taught us, I think, in quality, integrity, and continuous improvement. I mean, you're a real symbol, I think, of of American manufacturing. And I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
As a result of this interview, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what is your website address?
www.custominterfaceinc.com.
Custominterfaceinc.com. Please contact Nancy and her team. You get a feeling for, that you'll be in good hands. But I want to thank you for this great interview today, Nancy. Thank you so much.
This was fun to prepare, and I would thank you. I've gotten to know you and your staff. We were looking for some assistance in marketing, and I've just been wowed by the caliber of folks that you work with. So it's been mutually beneficial.
I appreciate you're a relatively new member of CAMPS, and so you've been to some of our meetings now. We're doing some stuff with innovation and marketing and ERP systems, and so all of these, the CAMPS community, as you've seen, is just made up of such a high quality board, a high quality staff, and high quality members that really want to help each other. So I want to thank you for being part of the CAMPS community, and just understand that Nancy is just one of those great people you can get a hold of and learn from and get help from. So
my business manager, Jeff Lemley, his name is posted on the website. So he would probably be your best contact point if you're interested in learning more or getting a quote on something. We're excited. We've built a lot of very small runs, but I want to learn about your robotics. I had talked myself out of that. Wasn't something that after talking to your gal the other day about it, it's like, we're going to go. I want to poke around with that a little bit. So I think you're going to open some areas of continuous improvement for us in that regard.
Yeah, and we are working with some of the leading edge, Industry 4.0, robotics, automation, some of the newest techniques in 3D printing and all the stuff that are revolutionary. So I appreciate you letting me, mention that as well.
It's a good segue, right?
It was a good segue. Well, Nancy, thank you for your time today, and we appreciate people watching this today.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Bye-bye.